Mr. Lilly, you ready to go?
Sure.
I know you're very early, and we appreciate you coming in. We're moving through these a little quicker than we thought we would.
Okay.
So his is solid waste tab.
I answered a bunch of questions for the budget hearing questionnaire. I was wondering if there's anything we need to cover along those lines. The solid waste budget is typically a fairly healthy budget, and as far as number one, asking if there's any concerns, we rarely run into any issues and typically finish, well, since I've been here, and I think even prior to me, under budget. So, as far as increasing costs and, what we're seeing, of course, vehicle maintenance, and as our vehicles, some of our fleet gets a little older, and repair, fuel, tires, lubricants, vehicle parts, and I also put on there a lease payment. I think we're looking at a possible increase in lease payment for one of our convenience centers.
Correct.
So, most of our costs have gone up slightly, or, have increases, but there seems to be budget adjustments and room in the budget to cover most of our increased costs. So, ask me how much money I anticipate turning back into the general fund. Based on some simple math and looking at where we were at and what percentages we were at in the remainder of the year, I'm approximating $80,000, and that does not include any landfill costs. That I didn't figure any savings in the landfill at all. I'm uncertain of where that's going to end up. So, employment cost. With understanding that employment costs are more than any other portion of the budget as a whole, describe the status of employment for your department. Solid waste is fully staffed except for one driver. The department is still among the lowest paid county employees, with our part-time people being at $12, and currently our full-time people starting right around $13.50 an hour. Next question is, if you've received an allocation for employee raises, cost of living adjustments over the last 3 to 5 years, describe the impact. The department and the commission has made tremendous strides in the solid waste department of bringing us up. When I started, our part-time people were making $7.62 an hour. So we've done all the way to $12. I've been here roughly 5 years. But it's still hard to bring on people. I've got, as I said earlier, I need a new driver, and a new higher starting pay for a new driver, even moving 4 steps ahead on the scale, is still below $15 an hour. We're asking this guy to drive a $225,000 truck for $15 an hour. So we still got, like I said, we've made tremendous strides, but there's still plenty of room for improvement for us. Strategies are using the rate aside from raises, to recruit and retain employees. Most of our recruiting is through word of mouth, Facebook. I've got signs up when we need people. I really don't have problems filling my convenience center position, because there seems to be a lot of retired people that want to walk into that job and enjoy that, because they get to see a lot of people and talk to a lot of people. The driver job, though, is a different story. So, in retention, I guess it's due to, if it's not due to pay, it's management style. And, I try to offer my guys as much respect as possible. It's amazing, because they're in solid waste, a lot of these people don't get the respect they deserve, but let them disappear for 2 or 3 days, and you see how important they really are. So, of course, we cook for them and give them food, and I provide Christmas gifts for them and things like that. But other than that, most of these guys are here because they want to work, and most of the people are here because they want to work. And the pay is secondary, but it definitely would help keep the people on. how many employees do we currently have, and how many do we need? We've got 9 full-time convenience center employees, 3 truck drivers, we need 4. We've got 3 recycle center employees, 1 litter grant employee who takes out a couple inmates on the road and picks up county roads, and I carry typically 5 to 7 part-time employees. Like I said, I consider us fully staffed except for that 1 driver. Moving on to the budget. I guess we'll start on page 3 under sanitation and services. 55700 or 55710, I'm sorry. Most of the 105 through 210 are figured out of the budget, or the finance department. You can see some minor increases that Eric's put together there that we need in as far as pay and life insurance, medical insurance, unemployment compensation. Our communication line stayed flat. Dues and membership, I asked for a small increase on that. Typically, we just had dues that were due. Carry $200 of dues for the Solid Waste Directors Association, $150, but now they're charging to actually attend the meeting. So I'm asking for a minor increase there. Evaluation and testing, which is our pre-employment testing as well as drug testing, stayed flat. Repairs and maintenance in vehicles, as I said earlier, well, this is the 2008 Ford truck. It's got 160,000 miles on it. I asked for a small increase there of $250. Don't really expect anything to go wrong, but don't know. Travel, I don't travel much, so I typically attend 1 conference a year. So it's been sitting at $2,000. We've never used that much, so I backed it off $750. Other contracted services, again, flat. Everything's flat until we get down to the trustee commission and workers' comp insurance.
No increases again on me.
As we move on to waste collection and pickup, truck drivers. You can see there's again, out of the budget office or out of Eric's office, a $5,000 increase in overtime pay. With us being short of driving, I'm sure that that may be needed until we can get that position filled. Of course, again, all the way down to 210, those are all changes that Eric has made to our budget based on, what he sees coming in the future. Communications and cell phones, we're up $50. Again, maintenance and repair on vehicles, asking for an additional $1,000. Everything else, towing, equipment, machinery, gasoline, lubricants, tires and tubes, uniforms, vehicle parts, other supplies and materials is up $1,000, but all those prior to that remain flat. And again, workers' comp is again coming out of Eric's office. Everything else below that, again, flat. Convenience centers, we got a small increase for the pay for the full-time employees, Social Security, pensions, life insurance, medical insurance, again, all from Eric's calculation, unemployment compensation. Advertisement is flat. We've tried advertising for positions, and honestly, the paper advertisements, I think Sarah had the same experience I did. I posted a position and received 0 responses. So we're going to have to use Facebook and, as I said, word of mouth. Communications, again, flat. Operations and lease payment, Eric, I think we need to make an adjustment here.
To line 330?
Yes. It was $3,100 and we're talking about increasing it by,
3,400 up to 6,500. So that's, think you was higher?
no, I'm sorry. 6,500 may be too much. 'Cause we're talking about 15 and 36, so.
I don't remember what the landowner was looking for at the moment.
It was around double, it wasn't in what we put in. It was a little more than that.
That's not.
2,100.
15 and 36 would be 4,100.
We have a list, we have to cover next year. This list is.
Okay, well, we can reduce that back down some.
Okay. That's just something that jumped out at me when I was looking at it. I came up with that number and I think I calculated it wrong and Eric just picked it up randomly, so. Maintenance and repair to equipment, we remain flat. Rentals, which is our portalets and our convenience centers, I've not heard about any price increases there, so we remain flat there as well. Other contracted services, crushed stones, uniforms, utilities. Again, everything down through the rest of the page, we remain flat year over year. Waste disposal and recycling. Again, we'll start down at 302, which is advertising, it's flat, communications flat. 335, maintenance and repair services to the building. We've been carrying $30,000 there for many, many years. I've rarely used much of that money. I used $1,700 last year to paint the building. So I reduced that by $15,000 to make up for some of the asks that we have in the budget this year. Again, maintenance and repair of vehicles, we're asking for an additional $1,500 due to the aging of our vehicles. Rentals remain the same. The next thing, I guess the big thing that we'll get down to is other contracted services, which is line 399. We're asking for $8,500 increase there. And that has to do with our ankle monitors that we use, that have been mandated by the state to use on trustees and inmates that we get out of that. That's just to cover the cost of that. Everything else, let's see, tires and tubes, again, with the increases in fuel and oil-based products, tires and tubes have gone up somewhat, so we've asked for an increase there as well. Other supplies and materials, we show a minor increase, and then again, workers' comp, which is Eric's domain over there. And that's really all the changes that I show or I'm asking for in the solid waste department. So I'm open for questions if anybody has any.
Do you think the landfill will make us pay the 10%?
I think it's gonna be, I know the landfill increase is based on total tons year over year, CPI, 1% increase, just for population increase in Hawkins County. I don't know what month that CPI is pulled from, whether it's April or June, so it just depends on what that CPI is and what that landfill increase is gonna be.
What are the qualifications required for someone to drive one of our trucks?
To be honest, I'd have to get with Jeff Owens. They do have to have a CDL, and I'm not sure what class that is, though. I'd have to check with them.
But you're having to hire some type of CDL qualified driver for $15-ish an hour? Right. That's tough to do.
Is their salary on the same as the county, or are they on their own?
They're on the same scale as county. That's, I mean, you look at the back of your budget books that we print for y'all, there's 3 scales in there. And we'll talk about all 3 of them here very shortly. But the one scale is the main one, 7-hour scale, 1820. That's where the majority of the county employees are. And we've got Mr. Street back here in the health department, who's got the 7.5-hour scale. Mr. Lily's on the 8-hour scale. But it's the same per hour rate, just they work more hours. Yeah, wasn't involved with the initial placement of those CDL drivers, but that sounds a little low to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to find a driver for less than 20 most of the time.
Well, that's what I've been told. I have a fella who left us to go to Greenville, and on a whim I asked, or had somebody ask him if he would be willing to come back, and he said for no less than $20 an hour.
Absolutely. How long have you been in this position?
Right at 5 years.
It looks like you've ran the department well. I mean, the fact that you maintain drivers and at these pay rates and whatnot speaks to your leadership. And, you know, obviously the fund financially seems to be in good shape. So I, for one, I appreciate what you're doing over there.
Well, thank you.
Let us
The
know how we
commission,
can support you.
the commission helped a lot. Like I said, when I started, $7.62 an hour. A lot of my drivers were making, I mean, long-term drivers making $11, $12 an hour. So I think we had to mess up the scale to make that happen, and that's still, you know, I don't know what's in store for us in raises this year, but there's no step program for the solid waste department at this point. We're solely reliant on COLA.
I think it's definitely something we need to look at.
So how is there not steps if they're on the county scale?
So, there is, but not like there used to be. So when the $10 and $12 minimum wage were implemented, I was against it, not because I was against 10 and 12, but we were moving too fast, and we were only moving one section of the scale. So, but it wasn't followed, and so when it was implemented, all of a sudden, we had several classifications that fell below it. So they were all brought up to the minimum. So from some of his folks, convenience center, attendance, and I think the recycling center,
Right.
from 1 to 10, there was no change. They all fell beneath it. They were all $12 an hour. Now, some of his other drivers, they may not get a raise for their first 3 years, but in year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they would have. Last year, we took a little attempt to revise that to a degree, trying to put 8-cent intervals in there. And if we had another COLA, that should spread ever so slightly, but it's not the steps that they used to receive. But yeah, when you adjust a hard line like that, a minimum wage, without looking at the entire scale and ramifications of it, that's what happens. So anytime we look at a salary scale revision, it needs to be slow and methodical, and looking at its entirety and how it affects everybody.
I do remember us talking about that last year.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Lilly?
I just want to say, John, thank you for helping with cleanup last weekend and picking up the litter.
Oh, and thank you for the listing that you sent. I think I have some of that already on my litter grant information, especially from Miss Irving. And but there was definitely some on there that I didn't get on, so that'll help with the total amount cleaned up in the county.
I didn't send that, I didn't realize that you were monitoring that too. I can send those to you. I've got.
When you sent it to me, I forwarded
You
it.
sent that.
Yes, we put that on a monthly form and send it into the state. And
I think we can have that, thing that they're coming out on the 27th, the Earth Day thing. I think that's one of the
Yes.
things we can count, and the hazardous waste that you're doing.
we're doing a household hazardous waste cleanup, or household hazardous waste day, April 27th, from 9 to 1 at the recycling center. So anybody in the county, any resident in the county, or surrounding counties can bring us chemicals or anything else that they want to dispose of and dispose of properly. There's nothing else?
Thank you, Mr. Lilly.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, we do the health department, starting on page page 36. I'm sure Mr. Street's going to touch on it at length, but I just want to remind everybody, the regional director stopped by, spoke with us, and talked about the 55110 program, the local side, conforming to the state's pay scale. We've always got that issue where we've got county employees working for outside state employees. They all have state emails and on two different pay scales. And a lot of times, it's caused us different issues. We've had to come in and try to adjust them. Some of the conversation was just to adopt that for those people, alleviate that issue. So I'll defer more on that topic, but just want to remind you, we discussed that a few times ago at the budget meeting, that was going to be coming up here in hearings. Sure.
And Eric, I have that letter that was seen that, do they have copies of that?
I believe they do.
You want to provide copies of the narrative?
Yeah, absolutely.
As that is coming around, are we starting with 55110 there?
Yes, page 36. I already sent you yours. Do you have the same thing they have?
A couple of things regarding salaries. Currently, there are 4 positions funded on 55110. 2 of those are clerical, that work in our front office, and 2 are social counselors that work in our visiting program. We are going to be eliminating the 2 social counselor positions. Right now, we have those same positions on state, and then on account 55190. And based on current caseloads, we think that we can accommodate that with not having those 2 positions. So without having the salaries plugged in on what you have in front of you, that's approximately a reduction in salaries of about $85,000, knowing what the starting point is for those 2 positions. And then if you take the pension, Social Security, and Medicare combined and employment, that's about $13,500 approximately. So you look around between salary and benefits, at least for the fiscal year we're going into, about a reduction of about $98,500. As he mentioned, account 55190, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, that is that account where the state provides funding to cover county positions. So if at any point we would need another social counselor too, we would have the option to put it back on account 55110, or we put it on account 55190. But like I said, currently, based on where we're at, we feel like we can eliminate those 2 positions with our program. So, any questions about that? Probably want to blow.
Yes, I have one. Is that 98,000 reduction reflected in this budget in front of us?
No.
It is not. With that,
Okay.
that's my calculations, knowing that Eric has not put in salaries and benefits. But looking at the previous year was $151,533. So what we're looking at with the 2 remaining positions that I will have funded, the 2 clerical, you're probably looking around about $67,000 total for salaries, and then all the benefits adjusted based on, Social Security, Medicare, pension, and all that, however that calculates based on that reduction in total salaries. If you look below the line, I do have some increases. Part of that stems from, one, anticipation and just increases in cost and services, looking at communication, also with building and equipment, 500 for building, 2,000. We are seeing a increase in our postage. We are doing considerably more telehealth visits, and that is a result of the pandemic. Much of that service has continued post-pandemic, so patients that would not present in person were taking care of their service over the phone, and then we mail whatever benefits or information they may be receiving. So we are seeing an increase in our mail. Travel was reduced, obviously, if you're eliminating two positions that normally do travel, that we will no longer have, I did make a reduction. Other contracted services, anticipating a increase in that, and then I do anticipate providing a increase for custodial services. They've not had a considerable raise in some time for that. And then other supplies, custodial, drugs and medical office supplies, just based on just increases we're seeing, just because of the overall market. Do want to have increases in those areas as well. Part of that too is that some supplies that we would purchase through state, we're seeing reductions in that, where the state is asking the local health department statewide to make reductions in expenditures, whether it be supplies or furniture and those things. So I'm anticipating absorbing some of those supplies by purchasing them locally instead of going through state procurement. So that's why there's increases there. Also, just some other things, furniture fixes. There's just some furniture we currently have that needs to be replaced. Chairs that's just had their life, they're 15 years old, and when employees are sitting in those chairs, they just fall. It's time, they serve the purpose. And then some capital outlay. I know there's been a considerable amount of money coming into the health department between the CARES Act, which is funding the awning project at Rogersville, and then the drug renovations at both Rogersville and Churchill. That's one pot of money. The ARPA funds that they have secured specifically for the health department, that's for the dental clinic renovation and the clerical renovation in Rogersville. All that money is earmarked to those projects, can only be used for that. But some of that capital outlay, some things I have in mind would be the sidewalk to the front, coming off to the side of the building, is in very poor condition. Also to the back of the building, there is no ramp and exiting the building. Either way, there is a step down or steps. I'm surprised by there was not a ramp built, knowing that at any point in time you could have an employee that would mainly use those doors that would maybe be in a wheelchair or have a mobile device to exit off. So I would like to construct some type of ramp feature to the back of the building, not only for employees, but for also any guests we would have that would be coming in to use our conference room. And we currently cannot accommodate that. We have to allow them to come through the front, and they have to enter all the way through the building to get to that space, to the back of the building. So overall, yes, there'll be a considerable reduction in salaries and benefits, but where I'm wanting to make it up in some supplies and materials that we could offset by purchasing with county because of reductions we're seeing on state procurement. Any questions about that? Comments?
I'm grateful that you're figuring out how to fund the projects within your budget. That's,
Sure.
yeah, we really appreciate that.
The next account will be 55190. What page is it on?
That's on Greenwich page, so 37.
Okay. This is the account that comes through the direct grant authority, and these are state funds that come through the county, funds county positions. Then the county gets reimbursed based on the invoices I submit. There's an overall increase in the contract, primarily anticipating if there was an increase or raises provided. They already had that budget in. Typically, usually put in a placeholder for that. And this particular account, what it funds is a part-time nurse practitioner, a full-time dentist, 2 full-time office clerical office assistants, 1 part-time breastfeeding peer counselor, 1 health educator currently. We do have some vacancies on that contract, but just like the consideration for 55110, until we reach a certain capacity with caseload and patients, we will only fill those positions if we feel like services require that. So we always want to have those positions budgeted in the event that we have a change in services, so we can fill those positions when we feel like we're at a point that we can. So overall, the contract was increased by around $48,521. That's primarily because they're anticipating if there is a raise provided, it's already factored in. We don't have to come in the first of the year and go back and do another amendment, which is just another slow process to get that from the county to the state and back. So they always go ahead and account for that. Some things was consideration of usually the benefits are very well padded as far as Social Security, Medicare, medical insurance. We try to put enough in there because if you had a change in employment, you may have an employee currently who may just have single medical coverage. The next employee you hire may come in and they take out family coverage. So they put enough in benefits that can be absorbed by the county with where they put that in the medical insurance line, and we're not having to do an amendment or increase in the contract because they're putting more than what. We will never expand the full 55190. Never have, never will, because they always make sure there's enough funding to cover all the bases. Insurance is primarily for the nurse practitioner and our dentist, and providing coverage for liability insurance, and then also travel based on our dentist traveling, and then our home visitor that will be traveling. So that overall contract did increase by $48,521. So the total contract will be $628,990. And like I said, we will not fully extend that, but all of this is completely reimbursed by the state. So any questions about that particular thing? The letter you have in front of you is the letter that our regional health director sent to Mayor DeWitt. I know Eric has said this has been mentioned in prior meetings, but it has always been the complexity with the local health departments, where we have a mixture of basically employees being funded by three sources. You've got your state employees, you have your direct grant authority employees, which is on account 55190, and then you have your 55110, which is direct local, and those are purely Hawkins County funded employees. So when it comes to starting pay, raises, and those things, it's always been a little complicated through the years in trying to explain to employees, and we've always tried to be as judicious as we can. If you've got a home visitor who is county, a home visitor that's state, we try to level the field as much as we can. Even in matters of making sure, we hope that the county will always match that state travel reimbursement rate. So at the end of the day, they feel like the pay is commensurable and the benefits, that type of thing. But a decision comes from the Community Health Services Division, which actually provides oversight to all the local health departments. So as mentioned in the letter in front of you, they're wanting us to become systematic in following the state compensation plan for county employees, and that will allow us to bring in those employees at the same pay, regardless of what that position is. The state has we've been doing pay for performance raises now for about, I think, 5+ years. Used to, the state would provide a cost of living, and that sometimes not long as 5 years without a raise. Since they've implemented the pay for performance, we have consistently had raises. So that does, for the most part, would assure that the funding would be there to cover that. The adjustment would be, for this case, would be in the event that we would follow state compensation to include raises. So if the state says they're going to give the county employees 5% raise, and you say the county was only going to give 3%, if we switch to this model, we're going to give everyone across the board the 5%, both county and state, so it's the same. If, for instance, if the state is going to give 5% and the county was going to give 7%, if they wanted to provide that 2% additional to the county employees, then the county would have to make up that difference instead of going through the contract. So that's kind of some of the catch-22 or some of the nuances with it. So we feel like this will be successful for all of our staff in the health department, so we have both state and county on the same type of compensation. And historically, when we have brought in county employees, even though there's different levels and steps, the conversation I had with Eric is, where would they fall at this? Is this step 3, is this step 4? Then consulting with the regional office, where would they like that person to be, maybe based on experience and those type of things. And then obviously after it reaches a certain step, you have to get permission, from the community. So this would take care of some of that, and try to equal that playing field as far as bringing those folks in and the compensation. Eric, you have anything to add to that, the context, or what's being asked?
We've had numerous personnel meetings trying to rectify small issues on this matter. To me, it seems like a simpler approach. I'm sure it'd be good for morale for the health department employees to all be treated fairly the same. I see more advantages than disadvantages. On the 55110, where the county money is actually involved, that we're eliminating positions, even if they are getting a little bump in pay, the end result is we're going to pay less out of that function anyway. So I'm personally in favor of it.
If Eric, may I ask, I know we're waiting on the signed letter from Mayor DeWitt, but obviously that will not happen until there's a decision made. Is that just this committee or the full county commission?
It's actually the full commission, but our intent this year, and we'll see how this pans out, but our intent is to try to comply with the state's request to pass our budget before June 30th. And so if that's the case, you'll have that letter just in the nick of